Hey, good morning. Happy Friday, everybody, from beautiful Boca Raton, and putting a wrap on the Rule Symposium for Natural Resources. And a special thank you to Rick Rule for being a gracious host, as always, each and every year. We always enjoy coming to the show, catching up with a number of the companies we follow, and also some new stories. We have more coming early next week, so do stay tuned. But obviously, we're going to get into our long form this Friday, welcoming back the one and only Grant Williams. Him and I have been going back and forth in this conversation. It's definitely about markets, but we talk a lot about sport, obviously with the World Cup, kind of starting to come to an end as well. What have we learned through this whole process, not only in markets, but really cultural, societal norms right now? So Grant and I really go down a thought-provoking rabbit hole in this 45-minute conversation, really looking forward for you guys to listen to it all. He always gives me so much to think about, and so a lot of value in here. Special thank you to Vizsla Silver, Revival Gold, Equinox Gold, and Integra Resources for their continued support of the podcast. As I said, we'll be back next week, regular scheduled programming with the morning briefing. Sorry if you missed out on that this week. Just incredibly busy with the show. But special thanks to you, and special thanks to everybody we caught up with here in Boca Raton. See you next week. Enjoy my conversation with Grant Williams.
In mining, the difference between a good project and a great investment often comes down to one thing: visibility. Tara Hutton is a Sweden-based mining investor platform built to make the invisible investable. Even the strongest project can be overlooked. Geology is inherently complex and data-heavy, and when it's reduced to raw numbers like drill results and technical reports, investors can miss the story, and companies can miss out on investments. Tara Hutton brings mining projects into the digital spotlight, combining data, narrative, and context in one place, so investors can see not just what a project is, but why it matters. Whether you're evaluating early-stage exploration or more advanced development assets, Tara Hutton helps turn complexity into clarity and information into insight, the kind of transparency that builds loyalty over time. Visit tarahutton.io to learn more.
I get a chance to really talk some banter with our next guest quite frequently over direct messages, but about once a year, maybe a little bit more frequently, we get Grant Williams on to Mining Stock Daily to talk all of his favorite high-risk venture exchange positions that he carries. Grant, good to see you. Welcome back.
Hey, buddy. Good to see you.
How are you?
I'm great. It's a great conference as always. It's good to be in Miami, and it's good to be in Miami on the same week that England play the quarterfinal here, which is looming.
Should we just talk soccer for
I think
the
we
next
should.
hour?
We could
or football, whatever
we
you
could
want to
do.
call
We
it.
could do that, but I don't think anyone would be tuned in after about 4 minutes.
Can we just talk about how Harry Kane continues to score goals and what appears he's always wearing a three-piece suit like a real English gentleman? Man.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Actually, he's done it his entire career, and every time you think, well, you can't keep doing that, surely he does. But listen, it's going to be a tough game on Saturday, but you never know.
You never know.
You live in hope, right?
Well, congratulations on making it to this round.
Thank
Unfortunately,
you.
the U.S. just laid an egg
the
other night. That was
best we don't speak about that.
Yeah,
for many reasons.
We're going to forget about that one. Well, we got a few things. Well, we do have a few things we can talk about, and probably too much to even with as little time as we have. Well, here we are on Wednesday morning. The bond market's really throwing a fit here right now.
See, I haven't seen this morning. I've been running around like a lunatic all morning.
30 years back above 5.
Okay.
It seems like things are escalating in Iran once again. Yep. We have volatility in Korea. I've never spent as much time following the Kospi market.
The Kospi's wild, man.
And I kind of wanted to start with that because, as just a consumer of your interviews, your content, your stories, your experience, I know you cut your teeth in the Asian markets in the mid-90s. And I'm just kind of curious, you're watching the volatility in Korea. We keep on saying we need to watch Japan again. What resonates today that you experienced dare I say, 30 years ago.
Well, first of all, you're very generous. It was actually the mid to late 80s.
Oh, okay.
So thanks for that.
Pardon me.
Yeah. Look, it's the thing I've been talking about with people this week is the difference between uncertainty and risk, and I think people will have heard me talk about this before, but I think it's important to understand. My friend Tony Deedon calls uncertainty the default human condition, which I just love, because it is, right? Every day we wake up, we have no idea what's going to happen that day. And so people talk about, oh man, the markets are so uncertain. Well, yeah, that's not a 2026 phenomenon. That wasn't a 1987 phenomenon. Every day is uncertain.
Yeah.
But risk is different. What are the risks? Because there's always uncertainty. So you have to live in a sea of uncertainty, but you have to try and mitigate the risks as best you can. And so the things you talked about there, bond market doing what it's doing, yields being back above 5%, that shouldn't really be a surprise to anybody, because that's the direction of pressure now is higher, and everyone's hoping that rates are going to come down because maybe we're going to get some really bad numbers and they're going to cut rates, and so rates will come back down. But if you think about what they're actually hoping for and why, it's we need rates down because they're unaffordable. The US is spending $1.3 trillion on its net interest expense. So it's paying that just to service the debt. That's $400 billion more than they spend on defense. The CBO projects that number's going to be $2.1 trillion in 2036, and it's one of those 45-degree lines, right, that they love so much. It's unsustainable, and so this idea about the back end of the bond market being above 5%, it's more comes from a position of fear than anything else. Because if you go back through time, 5 years, 5% for 30 years is a reasonable interest rate.
Yeah.
Right? It's a reasonable interest rate.
Right.
Why are we so terrified of it now? Because it's unaffordable. So that's the issue here. The whole setup is such that it can't be sustained with 5% interest rates. It just doesn't work.
Right.
So you take that away and then come back to Hormuz and what's going on there. Anybody that sits there this morning and has to completely rejig their portfolio because the memorandum of understanding has been torn up, frankly, was smoking something when they set themselves up. Because if you thought that piece of paper was going to be signed and we were going to smoothly get from there to kumbaya, you're out of your mind. Mm-hmm. There is nothing to suggest that was what was going to happen. So people should be waking up this morning and looking at it and going, yep, okay, that's overdue. We're there. Trump and the Ayatollah Khomeini. Can you imagine two more volatile bedfellows trying to negotiate with each other in good faith? It's ridiculous. So get ready. This is the way it's going to be for a period of time now. I don't think there's going to be any immediate resolution. The Iranians now have this idea sat in people's heads that they're going to be able to charge a toll for the Strait of Hormuz going forward. So now they've got that in their heads, and now the world seems to kind of be okay with it, and some nations have kind of said, yeah, we'd be okay with that. Well, that's now going to be their baseline negotiating position. Right. The things that are happening are clear, and people have been used to markets going up with a whole lot of tailwinds, and every now and again there's something that needs to be dealt with, usually through lower rates and usually through QE, and usually let's pour some kind of water on the fire. The reality is the world is a more uncertain place. Mm-hmm. It's a more risky place, and if your portfolio is still constructed for the times when no matter what the risk was, it could be diffused by the application of free money and low interest rates, I think you're going to find yourself in a very different world going forward.
Yeah. You with the back of Iran, actually, and I will fully admit, as of February, I couldn't have been more wrong on the direction of oil. Well, right. Except for the first little blip.
Okay.
Obviously, when things first happened, we ran up to, 110, 115 barrel of crude, and obviously nowhere even close to that now. And I didn't expect that to happen. Now, there was intricate...
You didn't expect the pullback?
The pullback.
Yeah, right.
I did not expect the pullback. And damn, if I should have just... when Doomberg was up there in Nashville at Tony Greer's conference saying the best way to play those is to short
always
the
sell the
spike.
rip. Always sell the rip.
Always sell the rip. I was like, he might be wrong this time, but no, he was right. I was wrong. But I'm also, this isn't over, right?
No.
And I'm just kind of wondering how much of those mechanics that kept the price suppressed and China not coming to the market, if that all changes in this second go, now that this MOU is all but, it's ripped up, it's gone.
Yeah. Look, I structurally higher oil prices would not surprise me one bit.
Yeah.
Doomy was absolutely right. He nailed that. But I can very easily foresee structurally higher oil. Does it mean they're going to be higher at $150? Probably not. But do we go back to 100 and find that as a floor? I can see that happening. I can see a very clear path to that. Whether it does or not, I don't know. But it's certainly something that I'm factoring in as a likely outcome. And if it doesn't happen, great. But getting blindsided by higher oil prices amidst a war in the Gulf, I think would be a foolish thing to be caught out by.
Yeah. I know you had Brent Johnson on.
Yeah.
Talked about that band between what oil prices were, and he written a very long note about that. I know you had him on. I haven't actually listened to the full interview yet. So, but I mean, it was pulled from that quote from Landman where he talked about the sweet spot of the oil price, and so with the I guess we seem to be in that band now, but are we seeing from highs to lows where we have to sit before things get really almost too overdone on the higher price or on the profitability if we do drop even lower? Maybe.
I mean, I think right now there are an awful lot of potential outcomes on the table. It's tough to take things off the table and say, well, that's something I don't need to worry about. And I mean that at either end. I mean, there are things on the kumbaya end of the problem that we're never going to get a clean resolution. Let's take that off the table. And there's also the nuclear war thing. We want to take that off the table. But there are so many things in between that it's important to stay nimble. It's important to stay able to react in both directions. And I think if you're a really seasoned, really good oil trader, this must be fantastic for you, right? What a great environment to be in, where you've got an edge and the price is moving in both directions. Fantastic. If you're not, if you're someone who has seen that there's a war in the Middle East and thinks, great, I'm going to be an oil trader now because wars generally mean higher oil prices, you're going to get carried out on your shield. That's just the way it is.
Right.
So everybody has been encouraged to be an expert about everything over these last 20 years, and they're fueled by social media, and they're fueled by this constant source of information, and also surrounded by thousands of experts on every subject, right, who were experts on X one week and experts on Y the next week and experts on Z the following week. So I don't think it's ever been more important to do your own work, right, and do your own thinking. Outsourcing thinking, which we're being pushed to do to AI, is one of the big dangers to me. And I talked about this yesterday on the panel. I've talked about it in a couple of interviews this week. The temptation to outsource thinking to AI is potentially very, very dangerous to me. I said this to someone else. There will be people here at this conference who have opened Claude and said, right, I'm at the Rule Symposium. Here's the 25 mining stocks I've been to see today. Which one should I buy? Yeah. Right? And Claude will give you an answer.
Right.
It will tell you, this one, based on whatever. And I promise you, people will go, right, they're the three I'm going to buy, Claude says. And then they're going to check in, hey, Claude, make sure you keep me up to date with all the news on these three stocks, right? And tell me when I should sell them. Right. It's happening.
Yeah.
But there is no worse sector in all the world to take that approach to the mining sector, right? I mean, it's incredibly dangerous, and this is what's happening, right? We're all lazy as human beings. We all want to do less work for more reward. That's the story of human progress, right? How do we make life? How do we have to work less? Every invention we've ever come up with was to make less work for ourselves, and then latterly we've tried to maximize entertainment through inventions like Netflix and the internet and stuff. That's just the way it is. But doing your own work and staying on top of your investments is so important now. You just can't look away. You can't assume it's all going to be okay. You can't read one news article, have one news source every couple of weeks and assume that you're going to be able to get out when the right time is to get out, or double down when the right time is to double down. You just can't look away.
Yeah. I have come to do some real thinking on the future use of AI. And let me backtrack. I remember in grade school when we were learning to use a calculator and we were doing arithmetic of some sort, and we'd try to pop out the calculator to figure out a problem. And the teacher would always say, try to do it yourself because you don't know. You may not have a calculator available to you. Well, now we all have a calculator. And so we have the tools to find solutions, right? And I think the usage of AI right now is so new, we don't quite know how to use it appropriately. I mean, we've been told it will do whatever we need it to do. Like, it will solve all of the world's problems in the future. That's why you have to give it the capital. That's why we need to build all these data centers. Like, this is the future. We must win the future.
There's always a story, though.
There's always a story behind it. But it's also one of those things, like this, it does feel like we've gotten way too hot. We don't know what we don't know. But it will be useful for us. Like it'll be like the .com bubble. Everything will blow up, and the winners will actually have decisive utility to it, and that will be clear as day.
Yeah, but the danger with this one, to me, is just that human nature aspect. Is like, man, I can outsource so much to AI. You're already seeing it on Twitter every day. There's 1,500 Twitter threads about here's how to make this easier with AI. Check
here's
these 5 prompts
yeah.
out, right? All that, right? And they get massive engagement because people want to know how to do stuff and save themselves the aggravation. It's human nature. Yeah. So it really worries me. And it's not to say that AI isn't useful and can't be used for. I told this story yesterday. I don't know if you heard it. I was on a panel yesterday, and a bunch of people have been saying, "Oh, yeah, how do you use AI in your process for writing things to Make You Go?" And I said, "Well, I don't. I mean, I might send it off to check some facts for me or get some data or something. But I when I get that, I check the data and I make sure it's accurate. I ask them where it got it from, and I go back and verify it and what have you. So but in the creative process, no, I don't use it. I don't want to use it. And I had these conversations. I thought, I'm going to do an experiment. So I sat down to write my letter a couple of months ago now, and I took what I'd written down as my framework that I wanted to work my way through, the subject I wanted to explore, the angle that I was coming from, the arguments I wanted to consider, all the stuff that I normally do when I sit down to write. And once I had it straight, I gave it to Claude. I said, right, this is what I'm doing. Write me 9,000 words about this. Away you go. And I just left it off. And then I spent the week, as I normally do, writing, researching and reading and writing and putting my notes together and stuff. And when I finished my letter and I was happy with it, I was like, yep, okay, I like this. I went back to Claude and I said, right, let me read what Claude's come up with. And I went through and I read this thing. And I was like, yeah, it doesn't sound like me.
Right.
But this is interesting. And okay, yeah, that's an interesting take. I hadn't thought about that. I didn't know that. And I found 5 or 6 things in there that I was like, wow, I didn't have that in mind because I didn't know that. That's really interesting. I need to find a way to work that into my piece. And I went and checked. And in part of the thing, the prompt was give me attributions and footnotes for all the stuff. And there were 4 or 5, I can't remember the exact number, but a handful of interesting references to scientific papers and stuff where, economic papers, whatever. And I went and checked them. And every single one of them was made up. None of them existed. And the titles of these things were extraordinary, right? I mean, the kind of highfalutin sounding, economic papers that you would expect to have been written by a load of staff reporters at the IMF or the BIS or wherever. And the titles were made up. The names of the people who'd written them were made up. And you challenge it and it goes, oh yeah, that may not actually exist, that thing. And I'm sitting there going, holy cow, this is... And I talked to another friend of mine who I won't name, and he had exactly the same experience. He was writing something, and he tried to get AI, I'm not sure if it was Claude, it may have been ChatGPT, to help him, and he found the same thing. That papers, made up titles, made up authors, And that to me was like, okay, right, I cannot use this. And maybe the time will come when I can, but I'm done with it for now. I'll use it for very simple tasks. Hey, ChatGPT, what's the weather like outside? Do I need to put a coat on? That I'm okay with. But I know that in the main, not everybody would have checked those references because they sounded so credible. It was like, wow, no, that sounds like a really interesting paper that most people won't check them. And they'll take it as read, and it will get reinforced, and people will start quoting, hey, I read this, there was this paper written by the IMF about such and such. It's so dangerous to me. And that's just a tiny little thing. God forbid people are doing important things like, researching illnesses and God knows treatments and stuff with it. So, that's not to say it can't get better, but right now I can see so much danger in how people are going to be applying it to their investment process, their portfolio construction, all those things where it offers at face value a seemingly convenient and rigorous methodology. The truth might be nothing of the sort, and I worry about how many people will actually take the time to check it.
Marshall McLuhan stated the medium is the message, right?
Yeah.
And this was years ago before computers and AI was even really an idea of what would control the messaging and the narrative moving forward. But here we are, and we've obviously seen how the bias in communications narrative in mainstream media all around. But it's also apparent that this is happening with artificial intelligence and the services that these companies provide, and how the government has infiltrated their overall capacity. And so when we say the medium is the message, obviously that is pertinent here to artificial intelligence because we get so much information. And I'm just as guilty as everybody else. I use it quite a bit. But I also there's been times like you where it's been giving me false information that just didn't exist or was wrong. But the way I have used it is actually, I feel like some days I get so many newsletters and information that I try to keep up with. And I try to do a really good job of reading them all. But what I'll do is I'll take all this information that I've read and consumed, I will feed it to the system so I know it's actual. And I'm like, okay, think there's a theme here. Can you confirm it? And what am I missing? Challenge it. And so I think the more we can feed what we consume our brains first and then feed to the system.
Agreed. 100%.
Better, but not be completely reliant on giving us information because we know we're being fed something that somebody else wants us to believe.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. And I think you for that sort of stuff, it is actually really useful to say, I've got these 5 PDFs. I want you to synthesize them for me and pick out any themes, any trends that you can see that bring them all together. But that sort of stuff, when you're saying, here is the body of work I want you to work with.
Yeah.
And I'm not giving you the entire all of your training to look at. I want you to look at these specific things and do X with them. Great. And I've had great success with that in terms of pulling out information and what have you from it. Yes, I totally agree with that. It's just when you say to it, okay, I trust you to go off and do the work that I really ought to be doing, and because you're going to go in all the right places and I wouldn't, and come back and give me the answer, and I'm going to take that as gospel. That's really dangerous to me.
All right. We're getting a little bit off track here.
We are, this is a mining conference, damn it.
Right. But I do, on the macro side of things, the dangers of this AI trade and where it stands today, people are finally starting to wake up and understand how unprofitable these companies are.
Yeah.
Finally, right? Ed Zitron has been out there.
He's phenomenal.
Oh my! Have you interviewed him before?
Do you know what? I met him. We were both speaking at a small event in Montana a couple of years ago. I met him. He's a really interesting guy.
Yeah.
I thought he was great.
Oh, fantastic! And what he's been publishing lately is puts me in the back of my seat.
It's terrific.
It's unreal. But people are starting to realize that these companies are unprofitable at the rate that they are charging people.
You know what? That's interesting the way you phrase that. Right? People are starting to realize. I don't think it's that. I think people are starting to question.
Yeah.
And that's a big difference because it was just taken as read, right? That these are going to be amazing companies, so profitable. And now they're starting to go, actually, maybe they're not.
Right.
I don't think they're realizing anything. They're finally starting to say, are they going to be profitable?
Yeah.
And as soon as you ask the question, the answer becomes very different, right? And that's that's the interesting part. That's the shift, is when people actually start to question something that they took, because everyone was all about AI. So people assume AI wouldn't be going up if it wasn't insanely profitable. And then they start reading things and go, oh, is it?
Yeah.
And as soon as you ask that question, right, and you're genuine in your desire to find out the answer, everything changes.
Everything changes.
Yeah.
So fundamentals might actually matter.
They might do, and look, they will in time, I think. But are we there yet? Maybe not quite.
Mm-hmm.
But again, at the margin, the right questions are starting to be asked, and that definitely changes the way the stocks behave, because it inserts a little bit of jeopardy into the buy the dip trade for sure. Because if people are uncertain, then when we do get a dip, along with the people say, great, I missed it at 300, I can buy it at 280.
Right.
You've also got the people saying, damn, I didn't sell them at 300, I better sell them at 280. So you just get that little, it's not one-way traffic anymore, which is important for true price discovery.
Yeah. And I think what's happening, what we're seeing out of Korea is really quite interesting. I just had this conversation with a mutual friend of ours right here just about an hour ago. And I said, listen, what's interesting is Korea is obviously there's two huge tech stocks that are so concentrated, and that appears to be unraveling here pretty quickly. When you wake up and it's down 5 to 8%, and it's already gone through the circuit breaker, I kind of feel like we may look at a time like, well, that was the writing on the wall. Why didn't I pay more attention to it?
Yeah.
But the equivalent to the U.S. tech indices, like the NASDAQ, is like, he said, well, it's a much bigger market, so there's a little bit risk adverse. I was like, however, it is a much bigger market, but on equivalent, what if instead of concentrating in 2 stocks like Korea is, we concentrated in 7?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same problem, just of different equivalent numbers.
No, look, you're right. And any time breadth gets that narrow, any time, in any market, you have it, whether the problem manifests or not, it might not for a period of time, but you have a powder keg waiting for you. And we're seeing it in Korea in live time. And the weird thing is, when these things happen, when we see action like this in the Kospi, everybody goes, well, duh,
Yeah, right.
I mean, of course. But they were the same people that were buying it hand over fist 3 days ago because the Kospi is the only game in town. And this comes back to this thing, we've talked about this before, this kind of transmutation of investment into gambling and betting. And that's really what it is. And so
nihilism.
Kospi was a bet. It was a one-way bet that was going to go up, and people who were buying the Kospi, most of them didn't know. They couldn't put Hynix. They wouldn't know how to spell Hynix. And Samsung, they make TVs, right? That's the extent of their knowledge. But they knew that the Kospi was the thing to be in. Oh yeah, I need to be in the Kospi. Why? Well, because everyone's talking about the Kospi. So, look, again, due diligence, right? When everything's a bet, people are very quick to put their money down on it because it just feels like it's frivolous. I tell Tony Deaton's stories often because there's so many good ones, but he told this great story about a neighbor of his, a guy that, over the proverbial garden fence, he'd always say, hey, Tony, I've got this great stock tip. And, I put 10 grand in this thing. Do you know anything about this stock? And Tony, no, it's not his thing at all. And he would always have some little tip, and he'd put 10 grand in, and he'd throw this money in, and some of them worked, some of them didn't, whatever. And then one day he said to Tony, hey, listen, can I take you out for lunch? So they go out for lunch, and the guy says to Tony, hey, listen, I want to ask you something. So I've been offered the chance to invest in a dry cleaning business that a friend of mine's opening. And he needed to raise a bit of money to help him get the shop started. He's asked me to do it. He said, and I've been out. I think it's a good idea, and I've been around. And there's only 3 other dry cleaners I can find within such and such a 10-mile radius. And I've looked into the dry cleaning business and this and that. And I know I've learned a bit about the dry cleaning business, and this is what I've learned: the chemicals and blah blah blah. And he said he knew all this stuff about the dry cleaning business. And Tony said, well, how much is he asking you to invest? It's only like 15,000 Swiss francs. And Tony was kind of smiling. And he said, here's a guy that there's no quoted price for a dry cleaning business.
Yeah.
Right? I'll give you a stock tip for a dry cleaning business. It's like, this is a real business. And so before he put the 15 grand in, he was like, right, I want to know everything there is to know about this dry cleaning business. And yeah, okay, you know what, this seems like an investment I'm willing to make. But he would throw 10 grand at a whole load of stocks because there was a live price every day. And someone said, oh, look, I bought these at 50 yesterday, they're 53 today. Well, I'm in.
Yeah.
And it's amazing when you think about these things in the real way, because, of course, what he did with the dry cleaning business is what he should do with all of these tips. Right. That's what you do if you're investing money. But if you're betting, you know, the England are playing Norway on Saturday night, right? You know, you might have
poly market, Grant?
Yeah, England might be 6-4 favourites, so you might have a few quid on it just for a laugh.
Sure.
But it's a bet, and we all understand what a bet is, right? It's you're having a guess about an unknowable outcome, and someone's giving you odds on it.
Yeah.
And the stock market has become that. It's not become a means for companies to raise capital and a way for people to allocate their capital to productive businesses. It's become a bet.
Right. I would say the either side of sports betting, you go to Craven Cottage or Stamford Bridge, the line's always up on the board, and in a way to put some money down on the game, right? It's like culturally fit in.
Yeah, people put a $5 down.
Yeah, whatever.
Chump change.
I feel like in the U.S., the whole gambling mentality, the nihilism of markets is almost, it's become such a bug rather than a feature, because we have to try to find one way to make it through because things are so unaffordable. Like we have to try to get a leg up one way or the other. And if the system's built on risk, and the riskier it is, the better off you might be, such as what has become the stock market.
Yeah.
More people investing capital than ever before. It just seems like we're at the late stages of a cycle where we will look back and there will be some movie like The Big Short where the opening scene was a party theme, right? And everybody was winning, everybody was having a good time. And we'll watch that scene from right now and it'd be like, yeah, we were pretty ridiculous.
Preach, Brother Hall, preach. I agree. I agree. I mean, I think it's a real shame what's happened. And Dimitri Kofinas has coined that phrase, financial nihilism, and that's his phrase, and he's been absolutely right. And it's getting worse, not better, because the success of the Kalshis and the poly markets are such that they're becoming sexier to more people, and it sucks in a lot of capital, and it's. I don't think it's good for anybody, to be honest with you, apart from Kalshi and poly market themselves.
Right. I do want to ask you, and this is a little bit of a hard pivot, but I have this kind of theme I wanted to tackle with you. And you mentioned in your presentation yesterday, fabulous presentation, bringing the wolf back to stage.
Yep.
Wonderful job. It's great to get an update on that from, what was it, like 7 years
2018,
ago?
8 years ago.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
But you did mention, as you typically do, and you've talked about it before, the moment that the United States froze Russian assets was really a catalyst of reframing of the U.S. dollar and financial markets and everything that came afterwards. And I'm just curious, if you draw a line from that moment to really perception of the U.S. as a global superpower, what's happening in Strait of Hormuz and Iran right now, are there similarities, or is there a line to be met here that continues that path of maybe America isn't as powerful as we once were?
Well, I think you can draw that line in two directions depending on your biases. I think.
Sure.
I think it's and you talked about Brent Johnson and his piece, The Band, that he wrote, which is a terrific piece. And Brent's contention with that is that the US is more powerful, not less. And he makes a great case for it. I don't know that I agree with everything he says, but I certainly, A, agree with a lot of it, and B, appreciate the amount of thought that went into it. But I think when you reach these turning points, when you get to the place where we're at, particularly with the particular thing you talked about there in freezing those assets, you've now got a situation where America has proven to not be 100% trustworthy ally. And trust is important, because trust is at the bedrock of money and finance and society, frankly. So as I said in my presentation yesterday, the Chinese are now offering to custody gold in Shanghai vaults.
Yeah.
And that's something that would have been laughable 5 years ago, right? People said, like I'm going to leave my money in a Chinese vault. Good luck with that, right? But after what the US did, I don't think nations are ready to let the Chinese have control over their sovereign assets just yet.
Mm-hmm.
But that they've become a less dangerous looking alternative than they were 5 years ago, right? Because people were quite willing to subordinate their monetary authority to Washington for decades. They're not anymore. They're just not. They're speaking with their reserves. They're selling treasuries. They're buying gold. And the other trend that's in motion is the amount of central banks who are repatriating their gold holdings. We don't want it at the Fed anymore. We don't want it at the Bank of England. We want it home. We want it in our control. So we are living in a post-trust world, whether we like it or not. And a post-trust world is not a good thing because society functions on trust. It's the bedrock of society. It's the bedrock of money. And when trust is broken, everything changes. So I think everything's up for grabs right now. I think everybody is nervous, and I think everybody is no longer willing to assume that partners they've been able to completely rely on in the past are reliable in the same way they once were. And if you just think what that does to the rules-based order, if you have a quote-unquote untrustworthy or less trustworthy United States at the center of it, it shifts everything.
But the rules-based order is decaying internally and externally.
Yes, it is.
Every day.
You're right.
I mean, every day we see headlines like out of Washington. No matter who you voted for, if it doesn't make you sick and you don't understand the grift that's going on,
Yeah.
I don't know what you're paying attention to.
Look, you're right, and ironically, to bring this back to the World Cup, but I think it's important. I genuinely think it's important. It's
symbolic. The World Cup has been symbolic of the world we live in.
Exactly right, and I think that what Trump did in getting rid of that red card for Balogun, the USA striker, and I've talked to a lot of Americans, and my American friends don't quite feel the same way. I was tempted to say don't get it, but I don't think that's fair. They just don't think the same way about it that I think Europeans do. This was weirdly, I think, a watershed moment. This was a moment where a sitting president, and it could have been a president of any country, stepped in to use influence and use power, soft power, to get a decision overturned in what has to be neutral, which is the World Cup, a sporting event, right?
Yeah.
And Infantino, oleaginous leech that he is, obviously buckled straight away and made it happen. And I think there will be tremendous ramifications from this. I don't think Infantino is going to skate away from this the way he skated away from so many more things. And that speaks to, if you break it down, it's not so much about the football, it's about their needing to be something we can trust, something we can believe in. And to Europeans and South Americans, that is football. Football is the thing that when everything else is stripped away, football is football. And when times are good, we go to football matches. And when we're in a depression, we go to a football match. And for 90 minutes, we watch an honest contest between men trying to strive to win and all that stuff. And the government don't touch it, and the powers that be don't touch it. This is our team and our town and our game, and you don't mess with it. And the powers that be, in this case Trump and Infantino, have done that. They've crossed that line, they've messed with it. And Americans won't know this, but the backlash in Europe is unbelievable. And across South America, it's unbelievable. And it's real, and it's picking up steam. It's not dying with the news cycle.
Right.
So this is as big as it is because it's a symptom of something else.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
it is a
100%.
symptom of this loss of trust. And football is the thing that, oh man, Trump and all his crypto billions and, politicians in this country and the grift and this, blah, blah, blah. Football? Okay. Now you cross the line. And it's not that it's the football, but football is the final straw where we feel like, I can't do anything about Trump making billions from crypto. I can't do anything about this politician in Saudi Arabia or South America doing this. But football, I know football and we know football, and there's a line I can draw.
Yeah. It kept on, I asked myself with the crypto billions and everything, that didn't surprise me one bit.
No.
I mean, we see the minor headlines of family members taking stakes in companies that then get a quick, government equity stake or whatever. again, not surprising. But I question was like, all right, Trevor, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
There's
There's
I'm
nothing
so
you can do.
fortunate enough that I have more to lose than to gain. And so my hand, I really feel like my hands are tied.
But even if you decided it was a hill worth dying on, what are you going to do?
Yeah, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? There's nothing you can do.
But people feel helpless, right? This is not the system that we are aiming for, but this is the system we have.
Well, let's be clear here. This isn't a Trump-only phenomenon, right?
Absolutely
This
not.
corruption has gone on forever. It's just that now it's so brazen and almost celebrated. That's the thing I think that people are finally having to say, look, I just can't stomach this anymore. I knew it went on, but when Nancy Pelosi stopped trading, right? It was like people who knew and kind of laughed it off. But this is so in your face and so celebrated that people are just sick of it, and it's symptomatic of a disease that's running through Western society. And Trump's not the cause; he's maybe the final symptom that makes you want to go to the doctor. I don't know, but it's a real phenomenon, and it's not political. It's not Trump derangement syndrome. It's nothing to do with that. If a Democrat had been in the White House doing what Trump's doing, most right-thinking people would have felt exactly the same about it.
Yes.
It's not about Trump. It's about what's happening, not the man.
Yeah. You just hope that whatever happens in the next election, that doesn't just keep piling up.
And the danger is that it does, right?
Exactly.
Because you get away with this stuff for too long. I mean, eventually it rights itself, but we may not be there yet.
I do want to kind of conclude the conversation with something positive, and we'll continue on the
Good luck with that, my friend.
No, I've got it. And
I'm
I know
here
what
for
it
it.
is. I know
I'm
what
here
it
for it.
is.
Okay, go.
I know what it is. The World Cup has definitely been a global uniter.
Yes.
And the images and videos of Europeans or whoever coming to the United States and having just trepidation of coming over here because of the narrative that they are fed, and then coming here, it's like, no, it's lovely here.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Like, we need to be reminded that we still live in a wonderful country, despite the headlines and things that maybe we're not so good at right now. We can still be a uniter and still be that beacon on the hill, whether it's through, just random acts of kindness, through sport, through music, through dancing. I mean, I love the meme I saw weeks ago. Like, if it wasn't for our world leaders, we'd probably all get along.
Yeah. So true. But it's interesting what you said there. Really hit me. When you say we live in a wonderful country, and I guess that's maybe, just thinking about this out loud, the choice of that language is maybe interesting, because America was always seen as a wonderful country. Right now, I think a lot of people experiencing what you just described, coming here for the World Cup, are experiencing a country filled with wonderful people. Mm-hmm. And I think it's an important distinction, because I've lived for many years among Americans, and they are the most wonderful people. They're incredible hosts. They're gracious. They're polite. They're charming. They're all those things. Yeah. The people have always been that way. The country was always bigger than the people, because the country was an ideal. The country was an ideal about justice and fairness and liberty and all these things. That was the country. And I think that's, now you've said that, it's hit me, that's the difference. It is still a country full of wonderful people. But the question is now, is it still a wonderful country? And I think that speaks to what it stands for, its ideals, how it goes about its business. And for me, I can't say that with the same enthusiasm as I have said it my entire adult life.
Yeah. Well, we probably had similar conversation.
I killed your buzz. I killed your buzz. I killed your optimistic finish. Damn it. I'm sorry. Edit
that's
that.
good. We could have probably similar conversation about the UK.
Absolutely.
I love traveling to the UK.
Yep.
I could spend a lot of time there. But I know that maybe because, you've had the wool pulled over, like you grew up there, you have real strong thoughts.
It's the same. It's the same phenomenon. Now I think about it, it's the same phenomenon. Is Great Britain great anymore? Well, what made it great, right? Yeah. It was the rule of law, right, which is being trashed every day. It was, Britain's entrepreneurial spirit, which is being crushed beneath the jackboot of the government, right? There are all these things that made it great, but go to Britain, Brits are still wonderful people. So that, we're talking about this now. We didn't know we were going to talk about this. I hadn't really given it any thought, but that seems to me to be the trend here. Is that countries, the identity of what a country is versus its citizens, is the thing that's being trashed. This idea that those wonderful people all believed in, bought into, and stood for, may be not there anymore. So what happens? Do those people fight to get it back? Do those wonderful people come together and say, okay, we need to get back our wonderful country? Or does that process take time and things get torn down even more? I don't know. I'm thinking about this as we talk about it, but it's an interesting thing to think about.
Well, definitely more food for thought. Maybe we'll pick up that conversation next time you and I chat. I will give you huge props. We went almost 45 minutes. You never once said it's coming home, so thank you for that.
I will not say it until they're waving it off the top of a bus through Marble Arch.
I look forward to Zabby Alonso walking down the street to the cottage and whipping your ass. It's going to happen.
Don't hold your breath, my friend. Don't hold your breath. We'll see.
Grant.
August 24th. I'll see you there.
Okay, man.
All right, brother.
Grant, thanks so much. Appreciate you.
Always a pleasure.
The information presented should not be considered investment advice. Mining Stock Daily and its affiliates are not responsible for any loss arising from any investment decision in connection with the material presented herein. Please do your own research or speak with a licensed financial representative before making any investment decisions.